Welcome to Flashbacks, a series that helps you appreciate the tiny tidbits of knowledge that may not be as well known. Today's topic is appropriately themed for 420, talking about something that I thought was relatively unknown, but actually an important cornerstone of weed's history and spread across the United States, and possibly even an impetus for its semi-legalization: the Cornbread Mafia. Although the Cornbread Mafia may sound like the name of some cheesy food parody of the Godfather trilogy, they were actually a figurehead for one of the most large-scale weed operations that took place in Kentucky. In the small town of Lebanon in Marion County, Kentucky, the Cornbread Mafia would be spearheaded in the late 1970s by a then-returned Vietnam veteran by the name of Johnny Boone, as well as his team of hundreds of others from various backgrounds. While the operation firstly stayed stagnant within the Marion, Nelson, and Washington counties of central Kentucky, it would later spread to 10 other states with a total of 30 confirmed farms. When questioned about why the specific locations in central Kentucky were used in a recent documentary, Boone and Joe Keefe Bickett, one of the main founders and chroniclers of the operation, stated that not only was it their home, but it had also had a deep-rooted history with marijuana in the past. You see, the first notable report of hemp in Kentucky was recorded in 1775 by Archibald McNeil in Danville, which was almost 150 years after North America had first been introduced to hemp in the first place by English traders and completely subsidized by the government. By the 1800s, Kentucky was producing approximately 90% of the marijuana market in the entire United States, and for a good reason. As Bickett explains, central Kentucky lies on the 37th parallel of the globe, which happens to be the same latitude that Hindu Kush Mountain sits upon in Afghanistan. This is quite notable, as it is actually the origin of the modern strains of cannabis that would be used widely in history, thus explaining why many would colloquially give the substance the name Kush. Because of the near equal distance from the sun, humidity and climate would bear similar conditions, which would make Kentucky a perfect place for introducing the new species of plant. Even though the future of cannabis looked bright for Kentucky, it would fall from grace as the largest contributor during the 1971 War on Drugs started by the Nixon administration, or the more appropriately titled Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970. The original purpose of this act was supposedly to silence anti-war advocates in the black community through targeted arrest, according to a previous member of Nixon's cabinet. Regardless of the original purpose, in 1984, both President Reagan and his wife Nancy Reagan would attempt to expand these laws in order to ostensibly crack down on crime rates. One of the most important additions was the increase in severity for the crimes of possession. As the risk of making weed went up, many homebrewed entrepreneurs would pull out, leaving a vacuum that would increase demand for anyone willing to set up shop. Thus begins the Cornbread Mafia. We time skip to 1989, where the Cornbread Mafia seemingly met their demise. Boone and 69 of the other members had been taken in for custody. However, due to their pact and deep friendship, none of them decided to talk, forcing the government to abandon its pursuit of a continuing criminal enterprise charge, which is just a legal term for large-scale drug traffickers. Despite Boone being the ringleader, he had actually been released before Bickett in 2002, only to have a warrant out for his arrest once again for the cultivation of marijuana in 2008. Due to the three strikes law that explains how the punishments of a crime significantly worsen if it is the third offense, Boone had no other choice but to become a fugitive. During all of these events, a close friend and journalist of the group named James Higdon had been recording these Mary Jane escapades in detail, constructing a non-fiction documentary-style book that he would later release in 2012, under the title The Cornbread Mafia, a homegrown syndicate's code of silence and the biggest marijuana bust in American history. The actual release date of the book was a year after Bickett's release from prison to ensure pressing further charges would be harder. The book would end up making waves for the next couple of months, shocking many of the large-scale operations that were supposedly kept hidden from the public for an entire decade. However, during this time, another event was unraveling. It was obvious that Boone could not escape the federal government forever, and just 3 days before Christmas in 2016, he was arrested. This arrest was very ironic, considering it was at the end of Obama's administration, who had previously provided clemency, or pardons, for over 250 marijuana-related crimes, even some that were related to the original bust of the Cornbread Mafia. Despite the outcry from many, Obama did not pardon Boone in the last few days of his presidency, likely due to the controversial nature of the figure. Boone had been placed in FCI Elkton, which was a federal prison in Ohio, which ended up being of saving grace for him. In 2020, Brandon Wood, who had been serving for aiding in the scandal of child sex abuse, had requested his release from the prison due to the circumstances surrounding COVID, which had been notoriously viral at the prison. While the motion for Wood's release was thankfully denied, Boone's defense team would take this opportunity to ask for a similar deal. Within 2 weeks of the original proposal, Boone would be released from prison on June 3, 2020. Now, Boone, Bickett, and Higdon are back in business with their own legal company, appropriately titled the Cornbread Company, paying an obvious homage to their notoriety. They have even developed their own strain known as cornbread, that supposedly tastes like lemons, and now go even further than just pure wheat and hash, but also pure oil and gummies as well. Overall, the Cornbread Mafia was a legacy that had ramifications even to the current era of pseudo-legalized marijuana. Cornbread Mafia's specialty in criminality led to its name becoming synonymous for any illegal activity that took place in the South. But I hope that this video was able to provide enough information to teach you about this overlooked pocket of history. Regardless of how you feel about 420, I hope you're able to enjoy today and make the most of it. I'd love to see you guys in the next video.